Ladies and gentlegrams, Ray Vaughn came on smacking that like Akon, slopping Joe with a naughty flow you'd hardly know. Day dropped a blow because each rapper responding so explosively, leaving no time for Joe to sleep. So Joe took a West Coast beat and finally claimed defeat. Now we're gonna break down my favorite songs from this battle so far and understand why people think Kendrick owes some bars to a rapper who's way less a star and begs for spars and might get checked next and sent to Mars. Now I shouldn't have to beg so hard. Please, ladies and gentlegrams, drop a like and subscribe. You don't know how much it helps.
I study rap battles for a living.
Now let's get into this, alright? What a day we just had in hip-hop. I was trying to keep up. It was impossible. I was recording a breakdown of Daylyt's diss track. Midway through, Joey dropped the response. Then an hour later, Ray Vaughn dropped his response. And then Daylyt dropped 2 more records. And then Joey dropped another one. And by the time I'm recording this, we probably have 5 more songs left to look at. Now, we're going to highlight some of the best bars we got from the entire battle so far. I've already covered round 4 of the diss tracks, so you guys can check out those videos. Now, before we actually get into the bars, we got to touch on 2 important distractive narrative additives is what I like to call them. Basically, 95% of the people are celebrating the fact that we're getting more music from Joey in the span of 3 nights than we have in the last 3 years. Real hip-hop is being put at the forefront and the focus is on bars, while the other 5% of individuals online cannot get over this Drake and Kendrick battle and try to downplay what we're experiencing with this Joey versus 20 battle. See, the first narrative is this was all fake. This was all concocted, right? Joey did this RedBull freestyle with Ab-Soul, a member of TDE, a friend of Daylyt, knowing that this would garner responses from the Daylyts, the Ray Vaughns, etc. And then that same day, Ray Vaughn drops a response track. Obviously, it was pre-recorded. Obviously, this whole thing is fabricated. They don't have real issues with each other, right? Well, yeah, that all might be true, but my question to you is, who the hell cares, right? Again, we're getting good music out of this. Isn't that the whole point of a rap battle? Yes, I understand that the songs are more enthralling when there's a story behind them, right? When the 2 rappers going head to head actually have a story of why they dislike each other. There's more insults that can be thrown. The lore is more interesting. The stakes are higher, etc. But at the end of the day, the focus is still on the music, right? So whether or not Ray Vaughn, TDE, Daylyt knew this was coming in advance and pre-planned these diss tracks, does that really make a difference? Is this like a WWE style rap battle? Sure, you could say that. But you could also say we got 20 diss songs, probably more in total from all these guys, right? We got like 6 in the last 24 hours. You think all those diss songs were pre-recorded? You don't think all these participants are actively in the booth and have been for the last week cooking up the best response possible? Does it really matter if this was used for clout, for promotion, or if it was used as a tool to actually destroy the career of the opponent? Does it really make a difference in a battle like this? Again, this is a rap battle. You think every rap battle in history involved 2 competitors who absolutely despised each other? I mean, Drake showed you himself that he was cooking up pre-recorded diss tracks as he previewed Family Matters on Push-Ups before it released. And now when it comes to Drake, we are gonna have to touch on La Brianna and Kendrick because there's another narrative here that's being used to try to downplay what we've been receiving from this Joey Badass battle. But first, with the whole, this is a fake beef, it's like, okay, and can your favorite rapper drop 3 diss tracks back to back in the span of a day? Has your favorite rapper done that? Is this not a much more respectable standard to set that 2 rappers who do not hate each other can go head to head in a rap battle and it not escalating to actual violence? Is that not a better standard to set than suing over a diss track? Using AI in a diss track? Using ghostwriters to concoct your diss tracks? I don't know. But anyways, narrative number 2 to try to, kill the party of what we've been seeing from Joey, Ray Vaughn, Daylyt, etc. is the fact that DJ Big Mac Akademiks and all his minions, all the OV hoes, are trying to use this as get back for the battle that Drake lost by essentially stating that Kendrick Lamar needs to jump into this. And you know what? Hey, I absolutely agree with them at this point, all right? We're going to break down Joey Badman's most recent diss track, Crash Dummy. And I think at this point, this is a good enough track. And he has brought enough bars to Kendrick's head top that it is time for Kendrick Lamar to say something about this. Now, we're going to go through a couple things. We're going to look at how a lot of OV hoes are comparing this to the fact that Drake responded to Pusha T, who wasn't as big as him, the same way Joey isn't as big as Kendrick. We're going to look at the fact that Kendrick has now not responded to about 3 or 4 diss tracks where his name might be mentioned, similarly to how Drake didn't respond to Joe Budden when he threw like 5 diss tracks at him. But this is a way different situation, all right? I don't think Kendrick needs to respond. I think Kendrick should respond. When The Ruler's Back first came out, Joey was talking to the entire West Coast. He even said this on the RedBull Cypher. He said, I was just shooting up in the air, see who would take the bait. He wasn't necessarily specifically targeting Kendrick. Of course, it seemed like a direct aim at Kendrick Lamar because Kendrick Lamar was the one creating these massive West Coast moments, which led to the D-licking Joey was referring to. But ultimately, that was a shot at the West Coast as a whole, not at Kendrick, and it was one bar. Even at this moment, to this point, Joey has not provided a bar as direct as F the Big Three, It's Just Big Me, where the world is looking like Kendrick needs to respond. When Kendrick said that, on Like That, F the Big Three, It's Just Big Me, that whole verse entirely, everyone looked at Drake and Cole and said, you guys need to respond to this because obviously this song cannot be talking about anyone except for you guys. And you guys were declaring yourself the greatest. So if you really are that, Kendrick is saying it's only him, you guys need to step up to the challenge. Joey here is not downplaying Kendrick's greatness, and he hasn't dropped the bar where the entire world is looking like if Kendrick doesn't respond to this, it shows he's scared. However, Joey has toyed with the fact that Kendrick has quote unquote sent the troops, right? He sent a bunch of artists smaller than him to come attack Joey, drop diss tracks of their own, but we haven't heard a thing from Kendrick. And also, to play devil's advocate, while Kendrick is on tour and people are using this as an excuse for him being busy and not getting in the booth to record a diss track, he did put out Like That when Cole and Labrie were both on tour together, right? Now, I said this in a previous video, I think Kendrick will respond on a record similar to how he responded to Lil Wayne and Snoop Dogg on Whacked Out Murals. I think he'll drop a track when he ends up dropping more music that touches on this entire situation. He'll have some bars for Joey, and Glasses Malone pretty much confirmed this, saying Kendrick will respond, it's just a matter of when. It might be in a couple months from now, it might be in a year from now. I think the biggest mistake Cole and Drake made in their Kendrick beef is that they moved on Kendrick's time, not their own, right? They were both kind of rushing to put out diss tracks. J. Cole fired first and then quickly realized he's not cut out for this, so he apologized and deleted the record. And Drake was too drunk and distracted with Steak, right? He had this record Push-Ups leak. He's saying it only took him an hour to record that. He's obviously not taking the battle seriously enough, playing jokes with AI, using Tupac's vocals, saying, hey, talk about me liking young girls. Like, obviously not anticipating the type of competitor Kendrick was, but still moving on Kendrick's time because Kendrick dropped that one verse and Drake was very quick to fire back and then begged for the smoke from Kendrick, right? Kendrick can play this Joey battle very differently. He doesn't need to respond right now. However, and you'll see once we break down this Joey record, there are a few too many bars aimed at Kendrick for Kendrick to not say anything back to. Say what you want about Joey, but Joey held his own throughout this entire thing. He arguably has the best actual song throughout this entire battle with Crash Dummy. I think it either goes to him or Ray Vaughn with Ray Vaughn's freestyle, if you want to call it that, over 50 Cent's Back Down. We're going to review that track as well. But Joey is an incredible MC, right? There's no denying that. And I think for that reason alone, tied with the fact that he's now taking on like 3, 4, probably even more West Coast artists all by himself and still standing his own, it's time for Kendrick to step in here, especially because, again, he's been mentioned throughout every single Joey record. Now, let's look at what Snaka Diddy had to say about this, break down these songs, and understand why Kendrick does or doesn't need to respond to this entire thing. So first, if you haven't been keeping up, Snaka Diddy has been very busy covering this Diddy case. Of course, one of the most insane moments in hip-hop has been happening right now in the last few years, and Akademiks has been absolutely silent on it. But his chat is getting at him to try to speak on this entire battle, right? And he basically says he won't. And he throws more disrespect at the West Coast, which he's been doing a lot of as of recent, saying he doesn't want to review these Daylyt tracks, these AZ Chike tracks. He'll only pay attention to this battle when Kendrick responds.
Yo, bro, could y'all stop telling me Joey and everybody drop? Yo, respectfully, I'm going to keep it a bean with y'all. Yo, I'm tapping out of all of y'all, like, you see all that little dick riding like media niggas? Y'all carry this shit. Y'all make this relevant. I'm good off of this Joey and whoever. I'm going to tell you why. Kendrick should respond. I don't want to hear about AZ. I don't want to hear about none of them to respond.
I mean, already that's stupid, right? Because you're supposed to be a hip-hop media personality, right? This is hip-hop. This is more hip-hop than the Diddy trial, which, by the way, I will be doing a breakdown on, but I have to prioritize this. This is way more exciting, at least in my opinion. But isn't it funny that like all these people who claim they're the biggest media personalities in hip-hop, right? The Adam 22s, the Akademiks, the Vlads, whoever, none of these guys have commented on this rap battle. They try to use the excuse it's a fake battle, a manufactured battle. Okay, well, we're getting bars, right? We're getting elite bars and tons of them, right? Tons of records, 4 alone last night, 4 more today. If that's not enough for the self-proclaimed biggest hip-hop media personalities to actually talk about hip-hop, I don't know what would be, but apparently only when Kendrick responds will this be worthy of Akademiks' time. And he goes on to say that Joey has been destroying everyone on the West Coast, even though I guarantee you he has not heard a single Ray Vaughn track, a single Daylyt track. He's judging this based off popularity, right? Because Joey is the more popular artist. And of course, this makes Drake look better indirectly. And that's why he's using this narrative. Because he says, when Kendrick called Drake out, or when Pusha T did, or Meek Mill did, Drake was there to defend himself. He didn't send any of his artists, Smiley, Party Next Door, whoever. So for the OV hoes, this works in their favor, right? Because they see Kendrick's silence here. So they, again, take his silence for weakness. The same way they did on the 17 days between Drake dropping push-ups and then us finally hearing Euphoria. So they use it to concoct this narrative that, oh, Kendrick is scared when an actual MC comes at him, right? Because Joey's calling him out. Kendrick has not said anything. When Drake was called out, he responded.
Joey Bada is slapping every nigga on the West Coast lyrically. I seen Absol sit there and like, he looking around like he don't even know what planet he on. What I'm saying is this. If Kendrick not responding, I'm not covering this shit. So all y'all niggas like, oh, why you don't cover lyrics? Because when the boy got called out, he didn't send out Smiley. He ain't sent out Top 5. He ain't sent out nobody else. He popped out.
Okay, Snacka Diddler. He's saying if Kendrick doesn't respond, officially it means Joey won. Again, he has not heard a Ray Vaughn or Daylyt diss track. I can guarantee it.
You call for the king, we want the king. I don't want to see the gestures pop out. Sorry, I don't care about it. Y'all about to give Kendrick a pass? No. Kendrick need to respond, otherwise Joey won. That's it. Over. I don't give a fuck about what these other West Coast niggas are talking about. Joey Badass gave belt to ass, and the king is acting like he's on tin. No. Respond.
Now again, while I do agree, at this point, we're going to review the tracks, but I do think Kendrick should respond to this for the sake of hip-hop, and I think he will. I think with the rulers back, he didn't need to respond to that, right? Even with Joey's next 3 records that he dropped, even with the RedBull Cypher, as he said on TV Off, it's not enough, right? But at this point, it might be enough. It's like watching a movie, right? Like, you can't see the same thing repeated so many times, right? Like, we already just heard 5 records from Daylyt, 3 records from Ray Vaughn, 3 records from Joey. At this point, what else would they possibly have to say about each other, right? What other shots can they take? We've seen Daylyt already take this thing to preposterous levels, talking about jumping off a bridge, referencing incredibly dark imagery, then clarifying he wasn't referencing capital Steez, and even dropping an entire track reflecting on the strong bond that him and Steez had, and saying that he doesn't have a real problem with Joey, right? So at this point, what else can Daylyt say, right? What else can Joey say? They said it was a 20v1, he came back with Loaded Lux. I said in my last video, the one thing we hadn't seen was the banger, right? A banger diss track actually dropped. At that point, it had all been about the bars. But then we get Crash Dummy and the back down freestyle from Ray Vaughn. Now we got the bangers. This battle has reached its climax, right? Like, the only thing left to do is to actually hear from the guy that Joey has been trying to get attention from this entire time. But does Kendrick need to respond? Like, will this add a chink in his armor? I don't think so. Because again, this isn't a Pusha T Drake situation, right? Pusha T was specifically talking about Drake having ghostwriters that destroying his credibility, him being signed to one guy that signed to another guy, etc. Like, there were some scathing aims at his reputation, at his career, at him as a man, to the point where Drake thought it was necessary to respond. If you really want to look at it, the first diss aimed at Drake by Pusha T was Exodus 23:1, which came out in 2012, right? It took Drake all the way to 2018 to actually respond to Pusha T when he dropped Infrared. That was enough to get Drake to respond. The most scathing thing we heard from Joey aimed at Kendrick is that Kendrick sent the troops at him instead of coming at him himself after the ruler's back. So I think, again, while we have got a bunch of shots aimed at Kendrick, none of them have been scathing enough where he needs to respond or else it looks funny. However, you know, him being the skilled MC that he is, and this blowing up to the massive moment we got where all these guys are dropping tons of individual diss tracks, I do think that the moment has boiled to a point where it's big enough where Kendrick should respond. But I think Akademiks' reason for why Kendrick should respond is absolutely wrong. He implies that Kendrick only battles when he has something to gain from it, right? With the Drake battle, he gained clout, according to Akademiks. He thinks Kendrick doesn't actually want the smoke lyrically because he's bigger than these guys. Meanwhile, Drake has punched down, right? He's battled Meek Mill, Common, Pusha T, all guys who are better MCs than Drake, but commercially less successful. But again, I can't emphasize enough, Joey has not provided any scathing enough bars where the world is like, okay, Kendrick needs to respond. Pusha T's disses aimed at Drake and Meek Mill with the whole ghostwriting thing, Drake was backed into a corner where he most definitely needed to respond.
But let me guess, you only respond when it's an advantageous situation where you could cloud up. Been told y'all fraud. When Drake was the but bum ass motherfucking Pusha T said he wanted smoke, Drake stepped up for smoke. Oh, Kendrick too big to respond to Joey Bada? So Joey Badass got to beat like 15 niggas by himself just to get to Kendrick? I'm not listening to not one of them West Coast songs. I need Kendrick to respond.
Flawed logic, because again, it took Drake 6 years to respond to Pusha T's first diss track. He literally said, Drake, in Duppy Freestyle, I told Weezy and Stunna I'ma done him for you, referencing Birdman and Lil Wayne, because the first diss track Pusha T released was aimed at not just Drake, but also Birdman and Lil Wayne in 2012. Duppy Freestyle came out in 2018. He only responded when Pusha T dropped Infrared, and it got to a point where the bars were too scathing to ignore. The bars have not gotten too scathing to the point where Kendrick cannot ignore them. He can still ignore these shots. They're very light shots. No pun intended. I know Daylyt doesn't like when you make wordplay off his name. And also, if you want to look at, Drake ignoring rappers, again, there's none other than the prime example of Joe Budden, right? Joe Budden gave very real criticism over Drake's album Views. Drake responded in the weakest, smallest subliminal on French Montana's Shopping Spree, I think the song was called, or No Shopping, where he said, pump, pump up, I'm not a one-hit wonder, they know all my stuff. And Joe responded with like 10 diss tracks that gave Kendrick and Pusha T a lot of ammo that they would later go on to use, right? Everything from literally the liposuction rumors, the ghostwriting rumors, the using Party Next Door and the sweatshop type rumors. I could go on. Drop a comment if I should do a whole breakdown of Joe Budden's disses against Drake. But Drake ignored all of them. Why? Because Joe Budden that year had sold about 15,000 copies in the first week with his album. Joe Budden was not on the Joe Budden podcast at that point. The only time Joe Budden actually got attention from Drake is when he gained popularity from his podcast, like global popularity, and Drake would respond to him in petty Instagram comments. It was only once Drake knew he wouldn't actually have to face Joe in the booth that he decided to give Joe any attention. When he thought that he'd be punching down against Joe, that Joe was the smaller artist commercially, but the much superior MC, he chose strategically to ignore Joe's disses. So don't come at me talking about, oh, when Drake is tested, it doesn't matter how big or small the artist is. He's always up for the challenge. Kendrick here is showing he's not. That's some BS, man. Kendrick can take his time. Kendrick can take 6 months, a year to reply, drop a whole album, and just, reply on the intro like you did with Whacked Out Murals. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying I think he should address this entire thing at some point when he releases new music. But again, these shots aren't even half as scathing as Joe Budden's were against Drake, to the point where the world is looking at Kendrick kind of funny, like, you're really not going to say anything about this? But it makes the OV hoes, it makes Akademiks look better to try to paint the narrative that, like, this battle is manufactured, it's fake, it's not even worth responding to, until Kendrick actually comes out with a diss track of his own, because that's who Joey's been trying to aim at this entire time. He's been ducking the smoke. Joey's had to battle off all these troops, all these West Coast warriors. And Akademiks emphasizes he hasn't heard any of these diss tracks, right? He's completely detached from this thing. He's more focused on the Diddler freak-offs. He's disrespecting the West Coast. He's saying he's not listening to no AZ Chike. He's waiting on Kendrick.
The day you respond, I'll cut the Diddy trial. But until then, all them other niggas, we ain't want to hear y'all. We want to hear Kendrick. A nigga trying to come for the crown. He ain't trying to come for the who we don't know. He coming for the crown. If Kendrick not responding, I don't care. I don't want to hear about Chike and whoever else and Abs. The nigga sat in a cypher with Absol violating the West Coast, and Absol was acting like he didn't even understand English. I was like, is this real? I'm good.
And nah, don't disrespect Absol like that. Absol emphasized he's riding for his syndicate, right? Like, if it comes down to it, push comes to shove, Absol is friends with Joey, but he will be riding with TDE. He will be responding if need be. But then we get Akademiks exposing himself and what this really truly is, which is to try to paint the narrative that Drake is a superior MC, or even battle rapper, if you want to call him that, than Kendrick is.
I study rap battles for a living.
Kendrick, you pop out and show because you was definitely down when it was Drake. I always hated this about Control. He dropped Control, never responded to nobody. Mad people responded to it. You had the Meeks, you had other people. He want to beef for them because the only rap battle when he think he could gain something. He number one now. He don't want to rap battle no more. So if Kendrick not responding, I don't give a fuck about what y'all got going on. Joey, you won. It's over. West Coast, y'all all lost. Yeah, he beat y'all 1v15. If y'all savior won't respond, it's over. I don't give a fuck.
So first of all, don't say that, Kendrick only pops out for Drake. Drake popped out for Kendrick. Kendrick was the one who started that battle. Kendrick was the one who wanted to prove a point with that entire thing. Kendrick has no point to prove here, right? And that's why no one is looking at him like you need to respond. When Meek Mill called out Drake for using ghostwriters, he had a point to prove, Drake, right? He needed to prove to the world that he can rap. And now you want to talk about Control as if this entire Drake-Kendrick beef didn't stem from Drake's reaction to Control? As if Kendrick, a few months after Control dropped, didn't go on the BET Cypher and say nothing's been the same since they dropped Control and talk to Sensitive Rapper back in his pajama clothes? That wasn't just a response to Drake. That was a response to everybody who felt the type of way about that Control verse. That Control verse was just to say, I'm trying to be the best right now, right? That wasn't to say, let me rap battle every single rapper that I called out in this Control verse. It was to say, no, I'm the greatest. It's my time now. Let me show and prove with my work. And that's what he did, right? He dropped To Pimp a Butterfly after that, Damn after that, slowly climbed the ranks to become the biggest rapper in the game. What was he going to respond to, even, from Control? Meek Mill's Ooh Kill 'Em freestyle, Mount Olympus by Big Crit. That was like the best response we got from the Control verse, but it wasn't even a diss at Kendrick. And he shut them all up with that BET Cypher, telling them all that, nothing has been the same since he tucked all those sensitive rappers into their pajama clothes and proved why he is the greatest, right? And I guarantee you, if one of those rappers jumped out with a full-fledged diss track at the time that Control dropped, Kendrick would have been right there to compete. If a J. Cole, if a Pusha T, whoever came out and actually dropped a full-fledged diss track as a response to Control, Kendrick would have been ready to battle. And again, you want to play the double standard, look at your boy Drizzy Defamation Drizzler, who ignored Joe Budden, the superior MC, when Joe dropped 5 tracks on Drake's head top. If the roles were reversed and that was Kendrick, I guarantee you we would see Kendrick in the booth. And I guarantee you he'll respond to this as well. Don't get it twisted. I think this entire thing has escalated to the point where it now makes sense for Kendrick to address it. He should, at least. Does he need to? No, because again, the bars have not been scathing enough to the point where the world is looking like you need to address this. But instead, it's more like this is hip-hop, this is competition, and your name has been called out now on multiple records, and very strong records at that. So let's hear what you have to say for the love and the sake of competition and hip-hop. And with that being said, let's look at, in my opinion, some of the highlights to come out of the last day. And those specifically would be Golden Eye by Ray Vaughn, the freestyle over 50 Cent's beat Back Down, and Joey's song Crash Dummy. 2 insane records. I've been bumping those songs all day. Ray starts his track off saying, they done let the guy off the casting couch slide through the kitchen, Johnson and Johnson. Obviously, I would hope that you guys don't know what this reference is about, but if you've been mildly keeping up with the Diddy trial, you probably do. Johnson and Johnson, of course, the baby oil. Joey obviously having an affiliation to Diddy. Ray is seeing here, he got off the casting couch, right? Do you know what the casting couch is? In a X-rated movie. And obviously, of course, Joey as well was, of course, acting for the last few years rather than rapping. So Ray is saying here, like, they finally let him off that casting couch, whether it's the Diddy casting couch he's referring to, or maybe the 50 Cent one for 50 Cent's series Power, or both, I don't know. But Ray continues, holy crap, it gotta get back on Troy and ain't say nothing. That's in reference to in 2016 when Troy Ave dropped the track Badass, which was a diss against Joey, and Joey stepped away from that beef and didn't say a word. Then Ray continues, heard he out here begging for Dot. I let the case spit. And before this, we heard Joey on the finals rap, I salute you, Kenny, but I know you well aware. You're looking for some competition, then just know I'll be right here. Ray continues, y'all trooping with this guy, then why y'all ain't deploy? I heard y'all was sliding on Diddy, but won't slide for your boy. Now, of course, again, Joey on the RedBull freestyle said that Kendrick sent the troops for Joey after the ruler's back, right? Ray is saying here, where the hell are your troops, right? This has been a 20v1. You've been meant to defend the East Coast all by yourself. Meanwhile, of course, as you can see, you mentioned the West Coast, a bunch of rappers will pop out to defend it. Then Ray goes on to reference what Joey was rapping on the finals where, he said that Ray wasn't the best investment for TDE, that they were losing money on him, right? Because He hadn't dropped the project on the label. He hadn't had much buzz until he started beefing with Joey earlier this year. Now he's finally dropped the project. It's not maybe selling as well as he had hoped. So he's resorting to this beef for promo. Ray flipped it a couple times to say that Joey is on his level, is as big as him, even though Ray is a new artist. But on this song in particular, he says, I was signed for 5 years and got blocked by COVID. You was signed for like 20 and still ain't got no motion. And of course, COVID had stopped a lot of traction for rappers. I really think COVID killed a lot of the momentum we saw in the late 2010s when hip-hop became the most dominant commercial genre within the industry, right? Like, think about 2018, how many massive hip-hop albums we got at that point. Between Astroworld, Cardi B's album, Kanye's albums, even Lawbree's Scorpion album, right? The Black Panther soundtrack. There were some massive hip-hop moments in that period of time on a mainstream level. And then COVID hits, and we literally do not get a hip-hop global superstar in this entire decade. And a large part of that is because of COVID. It really shut down the music industry. And Ray is saying he was a victim to that, right? Like, his career got halted by the fact that he couldn't go out and tour. He couldn't go out and promote himself. Meanwhile, Joey's still on the same level as him, but Joey's been in the game for 15 years. He continues, you had legends in your corner and still turned out boneless. And yeah, of course, he had multiple big OGs backing him up, right? DJ Premier, 50 Cent, Diddy, Static Selecta. Joey, definitely, to make a Soprano reference, had the makings of a varsity rapper. And I think this year he's coming to prove that he is everything that people had hoped he would be when he dropped 1999, 14 years ago. Ray continues, just a Forbes list missed with a Bad Boy bonus. He got the stimulus check from Bad Boy Records, Diddy's record label, but he never made it onto the Forbes list. Then Ray goes on to attack Joey's artists, saying, look, CJ got no hit, Kirk got no hit, you ain't got no hits, so Pro Era don't exist. TDE East? Ain't that about the B word? You got a label full of artists every blog post skip. Of course, on the finals, Joey had said, somebody tell Top we're about to start TD East. Ray is hearing here, all your artists are trash. They're getting skipped. Another slick bar is, he raps, a guy made it out of Will, but my name ain't Jaden Smith. And Joey would flip this in a very clever way on his track, saying, mention my wife's name and you'll get Chris rocked. That wasn't the exact bar. We're going to touch on that song very shortly, but he basically flipped this Will Smith, Jaden Smith bar because, of course, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock over a joke Chris made about his wife, and, of course, Ray Vaughn had mentioned Joey's fiance on his previous record. Then Ray goes on to reference Kendrick, saying, think I ain't got his number. He authorized the hit. Because Joey had said, you know, you're doing all this deriding for Kendrick. You probably don't even have Kendrick's number. You probably never even spoken to the guy. Crash out over guys who won't even let you in their house. I bet you don't even have his number. Ray is saying, nah. Kendrick was the one who sent me here to destroy you. If you're standing next to Diddy, then you shouldn't mention D-word. Because if they ever show that footage, you're going to have to plead the fifth. I'm the guy you should dread. I'm on your head. I'm Von Wick. Them gay lines is out of pocket. I ain't never been to Diddy's house. Soraya gonna be shocked when all that footage out. Soraya is the name of Joey's fiance. So again, Ray is calling Joey's family out their name. Couldn't get a Grammy and said, F it, put me on that casting couch. That's the type of D-licking that you should be rapping about. Bad boy. Oof, that's a tough one. Because of course, again, Joey was starting this whole thing off rapping too much West Coast D-licking, then saying that Ray was doing too much Kendrick D-licking. Ray flips that to say, don't talk about D-licking until that Diddy footage comes out and we see how close you and him truly were. Were you on that casting couch just for 50 Cent show power, or were you on Diddy's casting couch? And on the hook, again, he interpolates 50's song Back Down, and he raps, rap for 20 years, you still ain't made the big three. Now he went to TV, cause in New York, you're a cast out. Couldn't get a verse from HOV, now you're at Diddy's house and you're putting your back out. Joey did say he thought the big three was him, J. Cole, and Kendrick. But I do agree with Ray here. I mean, Joey had all the makings of a big three rapper, all the potential. And while he put out phenomenal bodies of work, he never truly lived up to what at least I thought he would when he released 1999. And now, apparently, according to Ray, he's at Diddy's house putting his back out. And he continues with the Diddy bars, rapping, with the clout chasing going after K-Dot for control, F the clout chasing, why you're giving up your hole. Oh, you're a badass, a bad boy, there he go, trying to cook a fake beef cause Puffy called you Sloppy Joe. F it, I'll be the Kendrick copy. That's better than boo. I don't know if I could say this on YouTube. You Diddy side chick. How you got something to say at the freak off for a week and you was calling me gay? Before the spice was Takashi, and where was you at? Troy Ave entered the chat, where was you at? Now, this is in reference to how Ray had said that Joey is not the king of New York like he professed on the ruler's back, but instead it was Ice Spice, emphasizing that New York was not in the best state because the hottest rapper out of New York was Ice Spice. And Ray is saying before it was Ice Spice, it was Tekashi 6ix9ine, right? He was calling himself the king of New York in 2018, and we hadn't heard a thing from Joey at that time to combat it. And of course with Troy Ave as well. Joey backed out of that. Then he continues, you wasn't trying to save New York and put that stuff on your back. It took a California guy just to get you to rap. Because yeah, Joey was silent throughout all these garbage rappers' runs, right? Tekashi, Ice Spice. I mean, you had a whole movement out of New York, and Joey was silent throughout the entirety of it, right? From Fabio Foreign, Lil TJ, Pop Smoke. Where was Joey throughout all these different eras of New York hip-hop evolution, right? And instead, he wants to pop out and say there's too much West Coast D-licking, and that's the time that he chooses to call himself the king of New York, right? Not when it's Ice Spice, who's the hottest rapper in New York. And no pun intended, she's literally the hottest rapper in New York. The best rapper? Absolutely not. The most popular? No. But the hottest? Yes. But let's move on to Joey's response to this Crash Dummy, because I think this could take the cake for the best song to come out of this entire battle. If not, it's a close second to GoldenEye by Ray Vaughn. I think this battle reached its peak with those two records. Yes, Daylyt may have came with more intricate, more layered bars, better wordplay. We broke down his records in the last video I released, so check that one out as well. But in terms of the hardest hitting songs from this battle, it's got to go to this Back Down freestyle by Ray Vaughn, aka GoldenEye, or Crash Dummy by Joey. So let's look at that track real quick. Now, Joey starts it off emphasizing that everyone who has dissed him is now on a time clock after this response. Y'all guys on the time clock, and anything past 24 hours is a shot clock violation. What's the current situation? People just clickbaiting. How predictable. This the angle I was anticipating. Of course, with people accusing TDE and Ray Vaughn of making this a manufactured beef just for the promo, just for the clickbaiting, Joey is saying he was anticipating that as well, and that they now have 24 hours to respond. And honestly, I'm not really concerned with time clocks and all that, but I'm very curious if Joey has these guys burnt out yet. Like, are we going to see more diss tracks tomorrow in the same quantity that we saw today? Then Joey takes aim at Kendrick saying, and thank you for making it clear that Dot scared. But yeah, I was at the Diddy party, but I also saw Top there. He's referencing Top Dog being at those Diddy parties that Joey was also at. And of course also claiming that Kendrick is scared to jump in this thing, right? Because Daylyt, Ray, they were all saying, we know you're thirsty for Kendrick to respond to this, but he won't. I'm here instead. Joey took that as Kendrick is scared to respond. Then Joey insinuates that he had a conversation with Top Dog, and this was all for promotion of Ray Vaughn to begin with, rapping, y'all guys going outside because I'm the one who top tier. He said, hey Joey, I got this artist named Ray Vaughn, and I'd appreciate it if you would really help me put him on. I said, okay Top, but you know it's going to cost you. You know I really want the one who elevated your roster. And of course he's talking about Kendrick, right? The guy who catapulted TDE into becoming one of the biggest hip-hop labels of all time. That's who Joey truly wants. I forgot to mention, of course, Ray Vaughn flipped 50 Cent's Back Down, right? A New York classic. Joey here, this beat samples Hit 'Em Up by Tupac, a classic West Coast diss record. Now, instead of playing off Daylight's name, he's playing off Kendrick's name, K-Dot, saying, I'm letting off headshots. I seen this whole stuff from afar the way I read dot. Of course, a play on words on a red dot, right? Like a sniper, he's seeing this stuff from afar. You point the red dot at someone when you're sniping at them, but he's also saying he read dot, like he read Kendrick, and he saw this from a long time coming that Kendrick would be scared, as Joey puts it. He continues, lately been enjoying the perks, but I don't med pop, aka I don't pop pills. I pop out and show guys how they hoe guys, simultaneously aiming at least 4 guys. How many more guys is it really going to take to drop him? They need 101 Dalmatians just to spot him and got him. My lyrical Drake making them beatbox. Now, this is a pretty layered bar because, of course, he's referencing the movie 101 Dalmatians, Dalmatians having spots on them. Spot 'em and Got 'em is an artist who has a song called Beatbox. And on his previous diss record, The Finals, he was calling Ray Vaughn TDE's hit dog, right? A crash out dummy. Not a purebred dog either, making a bunch of wordplay off of the name Top Dog. Dalmatians are also not necessarily known as strong, tough dogs, more elegant dogs, right? So he's saying you're going to need 101 more of these softer dogs like Ray Vaughn to actually knock me off. Joey continues, I won't hesitate, but these guys still won't drop like Detox. Of course, in reference to the Dr. Dre album Detox that took years and years to never end up actually dropping, something that Kendrick actually worked on. And of course, Joey is referencing here that Kendrick is not dropping, right? Matter of fact, I think they forgot the last time I destroyed an average rapper who tried to take a cheap shot. Here he's referencing Troy Ave, a rebuttal to Ray Vaughn's lines about Joey not responding to Troy Ave. He's comparing Ray to Troy Ave, saying they're both average rappers and Joey destroyed them both. And the hook is just very hard-hitting, and he calls Ray Vaughn not a crash out, but a crash dummy. And of course, because Ray Vaughn's first response to this entire thing was called Crash Out Heritage. Joey then raps, anywho, ask myself, what would Kenny do? Any day of the week, I take on at least 10 of you. You thought you got dirt on me because I buried you. Y'all guys is hysterical. Ain't no coming back from this, you need a miracle. And that's because on Daylyt's song AO, he implied that some Diddy dirt on Joey would be coming to light if this battle kept continuing. Joey says, nah, there's no dirt on me, and makes a play on words on dirt and burials. He continues, Joey just spun again, how could it be? It's like he knew it was coming, the future, what he foresee. Have you ever thought TDE was working for me? And this is a flip on, of course, Kendrick 616 in LA, and at the beginning of this verse, Joey rapped, what would Kenny do? Sometimes I ask myself. And at the same time, this kind of feeds into the Snack a Diddy narrative he was trying to paint, in that this was a manufactured beef between TDE, Ab-Soul, Joey to promote Ray Vaughn. Then he takes a little dig at Daylyt, saying, how the F am I your OG? You're older than me. Because of course, Daylyt is older than Joey. This ain't a fair fight, it's an effing slaughter. Why you keep bringing up pregnant women? Don't you got a daughter? And that's because on AO, Daylyt closed the song off, painting a picture of him unaliving Joey's pregnant fiance and their unborn child in front of him. Ray Vaughn also brought Joey's fiance's name into this as well. Then Joey checks the entire TDE label, saying, you really need to get your affairs in order. Last time I checked, your label execs was in hot water. And that's because Brandon Tiffith and Anthony Musa Tiffith Jr., the son of Top Dog, were recently accused of assault. And on a side note, people tried to look at this like it was a W for Drake because Kendrick had accused him and his team of, being predators and moving in flocks, and then this happens with TDE. This has nothing to do with Kendrick, right? People were calling me biased because I wouldn't break down this lawsuit. Why would I break down this lawsuit, this assault lawsuit, over two individuals affiliated with a record label that Kendrick used to be signed to? What does that have to do with hip-hop? Explain it to me. It is a good flip on Joey's end because, of course, they've been calling him out for hanging out with Diddy, saying that implies, he might be into some freaky stuff just like Diddy. Joey here is saying, the last time I checked, the label that you're signed to is in hot water over assault. So maybe get your own affairs in order. He continues, the Diddy House angle is terrible. You're making it way too easy for me. We ain't comparable. When I'm done with you, Top won't let you drop like Caribou. He's referencing Lil Yachty's old artist Caribou, who was in some sort of feud with him and then wasn't able to drop music. And he's saying, when I'm done destroying you, your career will be in shambles to the point where it won't seem reasonable for TDE to even let you drop. It won't even seem smart for them to invest in your music. And he caps that verse off rapping, guaranteed this is the last time we ever hear from you. And at this point in the battle, I just gotta point out a couple things. One, of course, again, how crazy is it, the quantity of songs that we've gotten from all of these guys in the last couple of days, right? Something we have maybe never seen in the history of hip-hop. And very reminiscent to the precedent and standard that both Drake and Kendrick set in their battle when they were dropping diss tracks one after the other. I can't help but think that both Kendrick and Drake are probably looking at this pretty happy, look what we started, right? Of course, Drake had to ruin it by now, not just setting the precedent that you can jump into a rap battle and drop a bunch of diss tracks in the same day, one after the other, but also setting the precedent that you can now sue over diss tracks. So, a way to ruin the moment, Lobry. But aside from that, I also got to point out the fact that Ray Vaughn has had an absolutely incredible 2025, and it shows that even the lesser known talent on TDE still have immense talent. Ray Vaughn dropped the contender for best album this year so far. The Good, the Bad, the Dollar Menu, you guys should definitely check that out. He's telling a full-on story on that project. It's very diverse in sound. It's showing that he is definitely capable as an MC to live up to the legacy of the previous class of TDE artists, right? The Black Hippies. And he's most definitely holding his own throughout this battle with Joey. I think at this point, Daylyt and Joey have kind of said all that they really could say about each other on their separate diss records, right? I mean, the bars aimed at Daylyt were kind of weak on Joey's end, in my opinion. just to play on words on his name. Daylyt really took it all the way, but kind of came full circle with the final track he dropped, which was an ode to Capital Steez. I don't really know, again, where else they could kind of take that. I would still love to see Joey and Ray Vaughn go head-to-head once again, because they've kind of made some decently big claims against one another, right? Ray claiming that he's as accomplished, as big at this point as Joey is, and then Joey claiming that Ray is a bad investment for TDE, and that he won't be able to drop another album because he just hasn't garnered enough success to where it's worth it for the label to invest in him. I'd be curious to see how, their back and forth can escalate, but I think it hit its peak with these two records that we just broke down. Again, both of them interpolating or sampling classic New York and West Coast songs, respectively, with Back Down and Hit 'Em Up. These two being the biggest bangers we got from the entire beef. Kind of feels very reminiscent to when Kendrick brought his Drake beef to a brighter place, taking a moment to break off of the, bar-heavy tracks like a Euphoria, Meet the Grams, even a Family Matters, and bringing it to the hits, right? Bringing it to the bangers like Not Like Us. They kind of did the same thing here with Crash Dummy and Goldeneye. I don't really see where else they can go with this entire thing. Or maybe another New York artist steps in, right? But that also leads the conversation to the main point in that, should Kendrick respond to this? Does he need to? Will you look at him a little funny if he doesn't? I mean, in Jay-Z's prime, he was responding to anyone, big or small. We have seen Drake do the same, to be fair. Like, Drake has responded to artists like Tory Lanez. Of course, Meek, Pusha T. These were all, commercially less successful artists than him, more lyrically skilled. But again, a lot of these beefs that Drake had with these guys, he was really put to the test, right? Like them calling him out for having ghostwriters, hidden kids. Like he had no choice but to respond. And in a lot of these times, he did crack under pressure and avoided responding, right? With Pusha T, he stopped responding. With Kendrick on the Hard Part 6, he rapped, "I don't want to rap with you no more. This really got me second guessing." Kendrick was never called out once in this beef as badly as Drake was in his Pusha beef, in his Meek beef, or even in his Joe Budden beef, which he decided to ignore. I just do think, though, that Kendrick at the beginning should not have responded to this when Joey dropped the rulers back, but because this battle was about Joey basically saying, I'm trying to create a moment for my town, for New York, as big as the moment Kendrick has created for the West Coast, just because of that alone, and because we've seen now so many West Coast artists jump out to defend their side, it would be fitting for Kendrick to at least share his thoughts on this entire thing, right? And where he feels Joey kind of stands in the grand scheme of hip-hop conversation, right? Because they did kind of come up around the same time. Joey came out about 2, 3, maybe 5 years after Kendrick, right? But when you look at those XXL freshman classes, I do believe they were only about 2 years apart. And Joey most definitely has a classic mixtape under his belt with 1999. Both Joey and Kendrick have shown a lot of love to one another. I'd be curious to see what Kendrick truly thinks of the initiative that Joey took this year, where Joey truly stands in the grand scheme of hip-hop conversation, why he feels like Joey keeps calling him out of his name, why he's so thirsty for this competition, and what Kendrick has to respond to that. But as per usual, let me know what you guys think. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. I said this in the last video. I'm kind of a loser on Twitter. I got about 175 followers. I think about 25 of you guys follow me from the last video, so thank you guys. I love you guys very much. At hiphophistory_, or just look up Rapaholics on Twitter, the same way it's spelled on YouTube. You will find it. Let me know what you guys think about this battle. Should Kendrick respond? Let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.
I study rap battles for a living.